Good afternoon. My name is Joseph Lloyd and I source cars for people on a professional basis. Although most of the cars I source are between £1,000 and £5,000, very often I've been asked to show something a little bit cheaper on the channel, and so I came up with No Budget Reviews, the series where we look at cars that you can buy in good condition with an MOT for under £1,000 and you can enjoy driving. We don't film this in an expensive manner, we don't use separate microphones, we don't use fluid head tripods, we don't even use a DSLR, but we do have a lot of fun. Well viewers, we do like 1990s Vauxhalls on this channel, and we've got another treat for you. So this is the Furious Driving social event at the Motorist, which is near Leeds, a place called Sherburn in Elmet. And very kindly, a gentleman by the name of Ben, who is a friend of Mr. Harwood from Rover Joe, has let me have a look at his Mark III Astra. When this car came out in 1991, it was a much more modern design than the earlier Mark II, although a lot of the engines and things of the early days were shared. Do excuse me, we're right next to an aero club, that's why we get planes. So this is a facelifted one. I think these came out late 95. 1.4 LS, that was a very popular fleet spec, and oh look, it's for sale. Please contact Ben on 07842 051956. It is a good honest example. There are little bits of rust on it, nothing major. It will have another clean before I think it will be sort of advertised and things. We'll take those signs off when we go for a test drive. But this is a shape of car that was just everywhere. These cars were known for being very popular with fleets, and military used to have these, all this kind of stuff. And yet they're becoming very rare. There's actually a saloon Mark III Astra here as well. Some of the Wilshams don't match, by the way. Some of them are off a Lake Corsa B. But that's, I think, the closest ones that Ben could find for this car. Originally registered down in London, but now living in Yorkshire. I don't know what it is, but I do like the look of these facelifted Mark III Astras, or the Astra F they're sometimes called. I think it's a pleasing design. It's very much of its sort of time, particularly against things like, I don't know, Mark III Golf, that kind of stuff, and of course a contemporary of the Rover R8s. If I'm honest, I think the R8s probably drive a little bit nicer than these, but very kind of sturdy build in these. Very easy to get in, and we see an interior that is a combination of kind of Mark III Cavalier, Mark III Cavalier and Corsa B bits. Headlamp switch, I'm sure you'll recognise. And yes, these indicator and wiper stalks. I've actually got a rev counter in here because this isn't a Merit or anything. It's not as decadent as you might think. And the stereo has been replaced. If I just in a second switch on the ignition, we'll see that we've got a display up here as well, which actually works with this Sendai unit, which has things like an aux-in, which is more practical for everyday use really. No air conditioning, of course, just absolutely and utterly idiot-proof controls. And do we have anything that sort of comes out here? Maybe we don't. Maybe I'll better leave that alone. Actually, no, just press that. Oh, it has a button. That's why it wasn't working, because it has a button for the ashtray, and what was the cigarette lighter? It was now a 12-volt socket. Classic wear here on the gear lever gator. They're all like this, and just very sort of chunky handbrake. We'll see in a second as well if my secret mission documents do actually go in there. They might do. That switch, I think, for the fog light might be out of the Mark III Cavalier. Certainly the door cards have actually got fabric on them and things. But one thing I've noticed, which is very funny, and this is the same as on the Vectra B, is that the electric window would be here. It's actually got a cap on it where it should be. This is reminding you that you should have bought the CDX and the electric windows. See here, we've got a manual sunroof, which is fantastic. Do we actually get a vanity mirror for the passenger? Yes, we do. I wonder if we get one for the driver. Well, no, because you have to step up in the trim structure to get one. Nice big door bins, very, very practical. And I think a lot of people who would have grown up in the 90s and early 2000s, these would be very familiar to them indeed. We'll just close that. There we go. Right, let's switch hands and take a look at the display. There we are. We can see it's 19 degrees outside, which is nice. Nice full complement of warning lights. I did ask Ben if this car had ABS, and I don't think it has actually. Does have a driver's airbag, which came in, I think, standard for the facelift. And it will have side impact bars and things like that. Gosh, these planes are annoying, aren't they? Right, let's get the commission documents out and see how they fit. So let's just see if these fit in the glove box. Oh, viewers, that is amazing. I knew I was going to love this Mark III Astra, and I love it even more now. Let's get in the back. So set up for me, I'm about 5'11". I remember this, it's quite a strange solution to mounting the seat belts in this, but this does give you, if I just do that there, you can see how much glass area you have in this car, so it means the visibility is very good. Yeah, it's quite nice and high. That's no problem to get in. Feet do go under there. Although, yeah, it's just the headlining slightly sagging on it, which is typical of a car of this era, really. It's very 200 as well. Yeah, it's all right actually. If the headlining wasn't sagging, I've got rid of that now. Headroom's actually good. If you're under 6 foot, that's fine. Knee room's actually fine as well. It's not a problem. You're missing the map pockets though, presumably because this is an LS, you don't get them, and nor do you get the head restraints or a centre armrest or anything like that. You get split folding seats though. Yep, split folding, 60/40, and the button to do it is just there, which would mean a very practical space indeed. Classic 90s Vauxhall, these head restraints with the holes in them, and not a lot else. You've got rear door bins, that's quite nice. But just wind up windows again, reminding you should have bought the CDX, and got electric rear windows, but that's okay. The only thing I would say is I'm going to be very careful with my foot not to get it trapped, but it's actually a lot better than most cars like this. Have a look in the boot. One of the things I really like about the facelifted Mark III, I don't know why this is, I really, really like this solution to opening the boot. I think that's really neat. It's quite a big boot actually on this. It must be about 350 litres. So we've got some brake discs to go on at some stage. Lift this up. See, we've got, yes, a full-size spare with the jack. Fantastic, viewers. That's what we like to see. Smoked rear lights, of course, because this is a facelifted one. And a non-body coloured bumper because it's only an LS. Right, let's take a look at the engine. Under the bonnet of this particular car, it's a 1.4 Family 1 engine. This is a Euro 2 specification, so it's got 89 horsepower. The earlier 1.4 Family 1s had either 60 or 82 horsepower. This car's had a new cam belt and water pump with auxiliary belt. One thing that's tricky to find is this part just here. Why does it look a little bit sort of a bit crazy? It doesn't seem to affect the running of the car too much though. Power steering, it's very good this car's got power steering, because I gather the ones without power steering are really, really heavy. So we should be okay with this. Made in the United Kingdom up at Ellesmere Port, which oh wow, there's so many Vauxhalls up there. I've been there several times, and yeah, everyone's got Vauxhalls right up there. Right, I think it's time, viewers, to go for a drive. Lloyd Vehicle Consulting stickers, t-shirts and mugs are available by clicking the link to the Google form in the video description below. Right viewers, let's go out for a little spin in this Mark III Astra. Straight away, despite having not driven one of these before, anyone who's driven a Vauxhall from this era will feel instantly comfortable. Fitting of the controls is really similar to something like a Mark III Cavalier or a Corsa B, and that's no surprise really. Gearbox has quite a long throw, but that's what they're like. They're all like that. Engines available in one of these were 1.4 in both high torque and SI form, generated either 60 or 82 horsepower. So a GLS with the SI 1.4 would be badged as a GLS, and then SI next to the 1.4 badge on the back. That engine was replaced, I think, with the facelift in 1995 with this Euro 2 compliant 1.4, still a family one, with 89 horsepower. Certainly it feels actually surprisingly quick. Don't quite know why. It feels a lot better than I was expecting. Certainly if you're going for the high torque, you are not going to go quickly. That was then complemented by some 1.6 engines. I think one of them had 75 horsepower, and then later on there was a 16 valve version of that engine. That's actually the engine in the Astra Saloon that was at the Furious Driving Social until a little bit earlier on. That had 100 horsepower. There was a 1.8 as well, the 16 valve version of which had 125 horsepower. That was available in a car called the Sport. The GSI, which was the top of the range Mark III Astra, that was dropped and then reintroduced, and the model in the middle of those two GSIs being available was called the Sport, and you can also specify that with that 1.8 engine. At the top of the range there were actually 3 2-litre engines. Initially there was an 8 valve generating 115 horsepower. There was also the later version which generated 136 horsepower, and then at the start the sort of fire-breathing GSI that generated 150 horsepower. I think you could also, for a short time at the beginning, get the GSI with the 8 valve 2-litre at 115 horsepower. I might be wrong about some of the power outputs because there's no really reliable source that I could find for UK market cars or the power outputs. So I do apologise if that's the case. There are also naturally some diesels available, but as usual, due to controversial government legislation and many other reasons, we don't talk about diesels on this channel. What we do talk about instead is the way that this car feels so utterly predictable to drive. It's not too light, it's not too heavy. Although with power steering it would be a little bit too heavy. There is a bit of body roll, there is some crashing over some of the bumps, but it just is a very, very good balance. Having driven a Mark V Escort recently, one of the facelifted Mark Vs, it was on No Budget Reviews, I think August 2021 we drove that, and that was another rival for this car. It feels sort of similar really. The engine's very, very nice and smooth. I can't believe that in about 1980, when the family ones first came out, that they were just revolutionary engine. That's why we made them until I think it was either 2015 or 2017. A very, very, very long time. I've owned a car with one of those engines myself, the Astra H twin top that I had. It just feels a very comfortable and competent car. This would be fine for long distance motorway cruising, things like that. Not the most dynamic chassis by any means, but it feels pretty good. I mean, the Focus wasn't on sale during the time that this was, and so Ford didn't have the same level of dynamic prowess in a lot of their cars, so this would have been very competitive at the time. I'm just feeling the driving position is really good. It just feels very secure. It's nothing particularly exciting, but I just like this feeling of sort of security and solidity that you get when driving this car. I like the kind of feel of the indicator stalks as well. Brakes aren't anything like a car with a modern electronic servo, but they're absolutely fine. I think it's even drums on the back of this. There's enough torque to sort of pull nicely from quite low revs too. It just feels really lively and pretty easy to drive. It's just a very good modern classic car for not a lot of money that you can just get in and drive and not think about it. And isn't that really the essence of modern classic motoring for a lot of people? In a way, it's a shame that I've got to give this back, because I'm actually enjoying this a lot more than I thought. I thought I'd like it, but I didn't realise that I'd actually enjoy it to this extent. It's only a Mark III Astra, and they weren't known for being the most exciting cars back in the day. And yes, an R8 does drive better, and possibly a Mazda 323 and things like that, but nevertheless, I really like this, and I don't know why I'm surprised. That tends to happen to me quite a lot. But there you go, viewers. Let's now look at some Mark III Astra trim levels, and by gosh, there are a lot of them. So bottom range at the beginning was the Merit, and then of course the U-Drive version of the Merit. That was available with a 1.6 engine. The L, the LS, like this one, the GLS, the SI, the Diamond, the CD, the Expression, the Cesaro, some of you might remember that special edition, CDX, Sport, GSI, Duo, California, Arctic, Arctic 2, Arizona, Premier, Montana, Swing, Ethos, and the Pacific edition. The car was marketed under a number of names around the world. Obviously the Vauxhall Astra and Opel Astra are the ones that most of you will be familiar with, but also the Chevrolet Astra in certain countries, the Holland Astra, of course, down in Australia and New Zealand, the Opel Optima in Indonesia, and the Opel Kadett of South Africa. The number of countries that built this car was extraordinary as well. Belgium, Germany, UK, Hungary, India, Indonesia, Italy, that was the Cabrio version, Poland, South Africa, Taiwan and Thailand. You could get a 3-door Astra, you could get a 5-door one like this, a 4-door saloon. There was the Estate, and also the Cabrio, one built in Italy. I think the Mark III Astra might well be one of the most sensible cars we've covered as a modern classic on No Budget Reviews. It's actually pretty good to drive. It's not sporty or anything, it's not dynamic, and there are many other cars that probably at the time would have driven better, but actually it seems pretty easy to me, and I've really enjoyed this car. I think the price that Ben's asking for it is quite realistic. It's around the right kind of area for something in this condition, and I wish him best of luck with the sale. So thank you ever so much indeed for watching this episode of No Budget Reviews. Please don't forget to subscribe to the channel, like this video and leave a comment below, and we'll see you again for more inexpensive motoring.